Heyo, CC here. I wanted to try something a bit different in terms of what I talk about on typical opinions and do something a bit more general compared to the specific videos I do. This isn't replacing the normal typical opinions format, I just wanted to try my hand at a tier list video of sorts and throw my hat in the ring. Also because I wanted to get something out for you to enjoy while I'm slowly working on another video. And boy is that tedious with how much I have to animate it. Anyways, how this will work is that there will be 5 tiers. Excellent, great, good, okay, and miss. Excellent being the best and miss being the worst, obviously. The placement will be based on my personal experience with the weapons and how I feel about them. It wouldn't be typical opinions without my opinions on these, now would it? To start off, I'll be going through all of Flanker's weapons. This will not include reskins, as they'll be getting their own separate video if this goes well and you want to see more of this. Enough talk, let's get started. First up, we have the lever shotgun, Flanker's stock primary. What more can I say about it that hasn't been said about it before or its equivalent, the scattergun? It's just a shotgun, which is already super reliable, but it has a bit more ramp up, allowing the possibility of two-shotting troopers at point blank. While it does reload slower than the shotgun, it's still pretty powerful in the right hands combined with Flanker's mobility. Personally, it doesn't always feel this satisfying to use compared to the shotgun for some reason, so I don't use it a lot nowadays. But even then, it's easily going in excellent. The Lupra DB, the equivalent of the Force of Nature. If you're looking for vertical mobility, then this is the primary for you, thanks to its force jump giving you great height. As a weapon itself, you have to be pretty close to deal a lot of good damage due to it knocking back enemies and its lower accuracy. Aside from that, I just mainly use it for reaching higher places or for contracts. Still pretty good overall. The Soda Popper. This thing is kind of underrated if you ask me. Sure, not being able to double jump kinda sucks, but honestly I have no issue with it, considering I'm a Doc main and I usually prefer to stay on the ground. Compared to the Lupra, this feels a lot better to fight with since it has stock's accuracy, and you don't have to worry about them getting knocked back. But the real thing that makes this fun to use is its height mode. While the multiple jumps are definitely nice, I mainly like this for the drastic increase in your reload speed, which allows you to pump out damage really fast. And if you pair this with something like the Witch's Brew or crits, you'll be going crazy. This is honestly great in my eyes. The Short Stop. Now this is my primary go-to weapon for Flanker. I just love this little pepper gun. It feels a lot better for me to use, and while it isn't as strong as stock, it makes up for it with its supportive utility and a whopping 50% increase in recharge on all meters on kill, which is perfect for how I like to play, which is more support oriented with stuff like the Mad Milk. So I'm able to provide extra healing or a debuff removal in a fight, but it can also be used more offensively too based on your secondary. You can go stuff like double pistol or use meter weapons like the shuriken. This thing is just so versatile. Another excellent. The Perceptionist, the equivalent of the backscatter. I've always felt like this thing reloads a bit faster than stock because of the different reload animation, but no, that's not really the case. There's one less pellet per shot, but that doesn't really change much, especially considering its ability to mini-crit when shooting at the enemy's back. Even in front, it's still able to hold its own, and I have a good time using it when I do. Going great. The Specialist. This is supposedly the support primary, as it's the weapon shown in a recommended loadout pack in the shop, but I feel like the Shortstop fills that role a little bit better. The main thing this weapon has is being able to capture points at maximum speed all by yourself, which is quite nice, but not something that makes me want to use it often. It can fight decently well with faster firing and one extra shot, but it still does less damage per shot, and it just doesn't sit right with me personally. And also the increase in knockback vulnerability is pretty annoying at times. Heck, knockback in general is annoying to deal with considering how much you get launched around. And that's especially the case with me since I have the British Rejuvenator. The amount of times I got launched off a cliff from a trooper I'm healing shooting at someone at point blank is frustrating. Overall, it's just good. The Babyface's Blaster. This is easily the weapon I use when I don't want to use the primary and focusing more on the pistol. Even with its increased accuracy, it has a hefty damage penalty and you start off slower. Also, for some reason, it uses the old shotgun reload animation, which is faster than the lever shotgun reload animation. Where are the bullets even going into? The speed boost you get when it's full is definitely nice at least, so it's gonna chill and okay. The shotgun cannon. I never really was a big fan of the Frankenstein because of the way it functions never really worked with my playstyle, so why in the world did they give one to Flanker? He's already got really good primaries, he doesn't need this. Sure, the faster firing rate is quite nice, but at that point you're better off using one of the DBs or the shortstop. Especially considering the brief period before you start loading in shells, which is non-existent on the Frankenstein. I don't like using this. I don't like this when I get it on a contract. I don't know what they were thinking with this, but this is just a huge miss. Now we're on to the secondaries, starting with the stock pistol. I'll mention this here since it is the first instance of a multi-class weapon. I will be talking about each weapon in respect to each class that can use it and how well it pairs with them. For Flanker, this is a really good finisher option. It can also just work really well as a primary or an initializer as you're closing in the distance, especially if you're using something like a DB due to those only having 2 shots, and you gotta make them count. I love using this whenever I'm not using the milk, so this is going in excellent. The conventional. When it comes to base damage compared to the pistol, they're the exact same if all the bullets hit. So it mostly depends on if you want 12 stronger bullets doing 15 damage each or 15 faster bullets that do 12 damage each. However, the stock pistol easily ranks above it due to the conventional having lower accuracy, which heavily affects its damage and knocks it down a bit. Still a good pistol, but good is all it is. The Winger. This one's always been quite interesting to me. I like how strong it is despite the fact it has half the clip size, though that's not the main point of it. When you have this or your melee out, you gain extra jump height, which can allow you to reach certain spots easier. But I mainly like this for its damage, and oddly enough paired it with the Soda Popper. At close range, the damage is enough to take out light classes. I know the others are able to while still having plenty of bullets to spare, but the Winger can take them out with 5 shots at max ramp up compared to stock 6, which is quite nice. And if they're still alive, then I just blast them with the primary. Nice utility, pretty nice damage, it's just a great pistol. The Concealed Carry, the equivalent of the pocket pistol. Health on kill that can overheal and won't drain is nice, but it's not something I like to use for that purpose. What I do like about this is the no overheal from doctors because it easily allows them to build their charge faster. So it's got some pretty nice supporting utility, and I'm all for support. But even then I'm not going to use this very often, so it's going in good. The Mad Milk. This is one of the best supporting items in general because healing on hit is so powerful that when tossed at the right time it can be a game changer. While that's nice and all, I personally prefer to use it more to extinguish teammates that are on fire because I can't trust my team's arsonists to be able to know how to do so themselves, assuming that we even have one to begin with. So I just do their job for them, and much more efficiently too. If I'm also on fire and someone else is nearby, I try to get close to them so I can douse the both of us. That's not to say throwing it at enemies isn't good. Even if it's just me fighting, it's still helpful for survival. Another excellent weapon. Bloxy Cola, the equivalent of Bonk. This has a lot of good potential for team plays, as the invulnerability you can get can be super useful for distracting both players and sentries for a bit, though most just use it to flank, especially on payload offense. Though when they do, they'll most likely be running past the sentry, so when it wears off and they get slowed, it's easy pickings. In my case, I just use it to quickly get around if our marksman is giving me trouble. It's pretty good. Witch's Brew, the equivalent of Criticola. This is pretty much just the glass cannon item. It makes you even faster and hit harder and even more frail. If you got the schmoves and the aim, then you can be a real menace. Just be careful not to get hit by a pipe. When paired with a shortstop, you can drink, kill, quickly recharge, and repeat. Otherwise, you can one-shot light classes at close range with stuff like stock. Getting marked is one thing, but it's another thing that the icon can be seen through walls, so enemies can see you coming at Mach 10 from a mile away. It honestly wouldn't be so bad if it didn't do that. Well, specifically if the mark wasn't visible through walls. Still pretty good. The 6-point shuriken, the equivalent of the flying guillotine. By itself, it's kind of bland and boring. Sure, it's nice to deal damage from a distance and apply bleed, but if you're looking for something that does that, just use the Rap Assassin, as it's easier to hit. However, that all changed with a recent buff that the shuriken got that allows it to mini-crit bleeding targets, so it has some pretty cool synergy with the Rap Assassin and to an extent the Brooklyn Basher, though it does remove the bleeding, but that's not really much of an issue for me. This was, and still is, my least used weapon for flanker. I just never really liked the shuriken, but I did start to like it a bit after a buff. So all those flavor flankers get an extra benefit from using those two together. It would have been okay if it didn't have the buff, but with it, it sits in good. The Super Sneakers. This gives you big ol' shoes that make you jump way higher, which is quite nice, but not for me. It can boost the force jump from the loop rub, but dealing with that is a bit annoying. But it does have an odd case of being able to stomp on people with how high you can go. But why go for that when you can just use your gun? It's just okay. Last but not least are the melees, starting with the stock bat. It's reliable for killing, with it being guaranteed to deal full crit on players that have less than a quarter of their max health. I tend to find it a bit odd with it being a guarantee, but it does make it very consistent since random crits don't exist in TC2. This is usually my go-to when I want a melee to deal damage with on flanker. It's great. The Holy Mackerel. I know I said it wasn't doing reskins, but this is technically its own thing since it has a unique property that makes it a bit better than the bat, and that's the fish slap counter in the kill feed. It can be used to determine whether or not you just hit a disguised agent, as well as seeing whether or not they're actually dead. Since on kill, it changes the number to fish kill, but it doesn't do so if they feign their death with a dead ringer. So even though I prefer the bat in terms of melees that can crit on low health players, I do like that there's some benefit to it. And you know what that means? Fish! It's going in excellent. The Sandman. Slowing down enemies to make them easier to hit is quite nice, and it is a bit funny being able to hit someone over and over again by picking up the ball every time you launch it. The bat itself doesn't crit, but it's still pretty good for flanker standards, though it can be a bit annoying being slowed over and over again. I'm looking at you, Bloxy boy. Aside from that, it's great. The Rap Assassin. Compared to the Sandman, it's weaker, but it's pretty good on the annoyance factor since it bleeds. So it's good for just hitting someone far away or just messing with marksmen. The cardboard tube is super weak, but that doesn't mean you can't get a kill with it. I know I've gotten a few, but the number of times I've gotten them can be counted on one hand. And with the new synergy with the shuriken, it makes it a lot more viable. But even by itself, it's already great. The Cold Shoulder, the newest of the melee plus projectile weapons, and it's not exactly very good. The snowball blinds on hit, but with client-sided jank and just the skill of the target, it's not really that helpful sometimes. Though the blind mark can be seen through walls by everyone, so it makes it viable for focus fire. It can also extinguish teammates, but there are better ways to do so, and one of them is a literal jar of milk. It can also do a little bit of damage, but that's mainly just for the funny factor of killing someone with a snowball. The stick itself deploys slower, but it can crit, so it's overall just okay. The Candy Cane. Health packs on kill are quite nice, especially if you can't extinguish yourself if you are fighting an arsonist. The lower reserve ammo can be an inconvenience at times, but I use stuff with low clip sizes anyway, so it's not that big a deal. It can crit like stock, but it's only a mini crit, which makes it require an extra hit for Trooper and Brute. But aside from that, it's pretty alright. Going in good. The Atomizer. This is definitely my least used melee because its ability to give you a triple jump can be done better by other weapons for free. You take 10 damage every time you use the triple jump. It's not even that good combat-wise since it swings slower, deals less damage, and can't crit. Which makes sense for a more utility-based weapon, but when the one thing it's meant to be for can be overshadowed by other weapons that can do it better, what do you have left? It's a bit of a miss, if you ask me. The Grill Scout, the equivalent and overall just better version of the Son on a Stick. If you want a melee that can help out your team, then this is the one for you. Its ability to apply afterburn on hit and mini-crit burning players make up for its slower swing speed, but that's not why I love it so much. It also has the ability to remove debuffs on allies when you hit them with it. And it's not just afterburn, it can also remove milk, lemonade, and bleed as well. It works just like Arson's stock fire extinguisher, but since you're much faster, it's easier to rush over to reach your teammates as they're running off to try and get a health pack or something. It's just excellent. The Brooklyn Basher. Although I like playing support flanker, this isn't something I use a lot since the other teammates are going to be taking enough damage for our Doc to build charge rather quickly. But if they need a safer way to do so, then its self-damage on miss can help out. This is actually something all of the classes in the offense category can do now that I think about it. Outside of that, it's the only melee with a damage increase, and it can also apply bleed. So you really gotta time your hits, especially since the change where they added a slight delay before the hit probably comes out, like in TF2. And the damage you take is quite hefty, but at least you don't bleed, so that makes it good. The Wooden Sword, the equivalent to the Fan of War. The utility this provides is not something to ignore. Taking 35% more damage that's unaffected by fall off is no joke. And with the faster deploy and holster speed, it makes it easier to pull this out, mark a player, then switch back to your primary and just blast them. This can also instantly remove the invulnerability from the Bloxy Cola if you hit someone under the effects of it. So if it's causing you trouble, switch to this and they'll be wide open for attack. Despite it being weaker than the Rap Assassin in terms of melee damage, it's still pretty good. And that's the list. Of course, you may feel differently about my placements, but that's what opinions are all about. We are free to agree and disagree with them as long as we're civil about it. Let me know in the comments what you think of flankers' weapons. And as much as I don't really like to say this, like the vid if you enjoyed it and subscribe to see more videos like this. For now, that'll be all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.